Hi everybody, this is Manar Hussein.
This is Athena.
This is Salali.
And today we chose to represent the
Complexities
and intersectionalities of race, ethnicity, and education in Chicago through a popular tower building game called Jenga. So in this game, players take turns removing one block at a time from the tower. Every time a block is removed, it's placed at the top of the tower, creating a more unstable structure, leading to its
inevitable
collapse.
We believe this to be an ideal model to portray the education system in America, specifically for the city of Chicago. Racial segregation, white flight, and economic crisis, amongst other factors, have all contributed to the disinvestment and decay of urban schools.
This is proven to be true for schools in Chicago. The mayors of this city had a vision for what they wanted it to look like and who had a right to it. Residents of Chicago's underfunded neighborhoods have advocated for their children for generations. Teachers and parents alike push for integration, better resources, even distribution, and equity for their Black and brown students. In Dueling Realities, Trey Barksdale from Bronzeville stated to a judge that in 1963, his mother and grandmother fought against the First Daily to get a better life and a better education. Yet 50 years later, they were still doing the same thing. They gave data repeatedly on how to improve schooling for the children of Chicago, especially children of color. And even with all that information, the mayor didn't do anything about it, and he rightfully claimed that the mayor must not have cared. If it appears as if it was one thing after another with the city's public education system, that's because it is. We could say that it was, but the fact is that the push for equity in our neighborhood schools has been and always will be a battle. While we wish that it got easier, it seems like it never does. That's why the Jenga game perfectly represents Chicago's school system. A block represents a term or theme that we've learned in class that's intertwined with urban education, a law or an act that was passed to reform the system, specific events, and the countless amounts of times teachers, parents, and students have fought back against a city that turned its back on them. You can take one block out as a relief, thinking you've removed an issue, but the stress comes with having to put it back on top because it's never really gone and the fight never stops. And each time that happens, it weakens the structure of the tower. So now we're going to start to play the game Jenga, and eventually it's going to collapse. It just is a matter of time and strategy. So now we'll begin to play the Jenga game. So Ali, do you want to go first?
Sure. All right, so the first one I pulled out was SQRP, which is a school quality rating policy. It's a CPS rating system that was supposed to provide parents with information about their child's school. However, this rating policy reinforced patterns of segregation and poverty, and low SQRP ratings led to falling enrollment and ultimately led to school closures.
Okay. All right, I pulled white flight. So white flight is just like the sudden migration of white people from areas that are becoming like more racially and ethnically diverse, which is a city like Chicago.
All right, so the next one I pulled out was the school to prison pipeline. School to prison pipeline is a process in which students are pushed out of schools through school suspensions. They're usually pushed out in a way to discipline the students.
Okay. The Chicago Teacher Union, so the CTU is just a unionized group of teachers in Chicago, and they fight for like better working conditions. As you can see down here in some of our like little time-lapse ones. In 1969, the teachers strike began for the first time in Chicago. And in 1979, just 10 years later, the CPS had such a financial crisis that it led to payless days, but teachers were still forced to work. And in 1987, the teachers went on a 19-day strike, which was the longest strike ever. So this is why they created a union, so that they could be protected for their rights, their workers' rights.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I got racial hierarchy. That's a hard word for me to say. So basically this means that whiteness has higher positions in a sense of the education system. Schools with a higher white population get better access to resources and better treatment than places with people of color.
So as you can see, like the more problems, the more blocks that we take out, like the weaker the structure gets, and the structure is supposed to represent the education system in Chicago. And this tower is already beginning to like show signs of early crumble. So let's see what we'll take out next.
I'm scared. Oh, okay.
Oh my god, oh my god.
My heart stopped. All right, so the next one that was pulled out was Bill Bennett. Bill Bennett was a former U.S. Secretary of Education. He called Chicago Public Schools the worst in the nation. He was Secretary of Education when Harold Washington was mayor of Chicago. Right.
Oh my god.
That was
Oh my
good.
gosh. Okay, selective reinvestment. So this can actually be tied to Chicago's Renaissance 2010 plan, which basically provided that over 50 public schools would be closed in the city of Chicago for the opening of 100 new charter schools. This is definitely selective reinvestment of urban areas and the disinvestment of existing neighborhood schools, which just jeopardize students and their families. I'm scared to put this on top. Also, sometimes these blocks would be like reoccurring because, like we mentioned earlier, these issues, they never really go away. They just come back all the time.
The zero tolerance policy. So basically, the zero tolerance policy are penalties for students who break rules. Discipline policies are aimed to typically harm students of color. This could also mean that they can be sent to last chance schools where, just like the title says, they feel like there's no chance for them. Oh no.
Oh my god!
Okay.
Well, as you could see, the more blocks that we take out with all these different issues that we see, it just weakens the structure of the education system, and eventually it'll collapse, and it has before. And it's a cycle that we keep repeating, and hopefully we will get blocks with more positive terms, more positive events, more positive acts that'll actually reform the education system and give access to the students that need it the most.